Laugh while you can. Your weekend just ended.
The wrench slipped from my grease-stained fingers as Elena's voice drifted through the garage door. 3 a.m., and my wife was whispering sweet nothings into her phone like a lovesick teenager. I'd been under the hood of my battered Ford for 2 hours, trying to fix the alternator that had been giving me grief all week. Now I was getting a different kind of grief entirely. I can't wait to see you tomorrow, baby. Mark's working late again, so we'll have the whole weekend. Baby? In 15 years of marriage, Elena had never called me baby. Not even during our honeymoon when she was pretending to be happy about marrying a blue-collar project manager instead of the lawyer she'd always dreamed of becoming herself. I wiped my hands on an old rag and crept closer to the door connecting the garage to our kitchen. Elena's voice was clearer now, honey-sweet and dripping with the kind of affection she used to reserve for our daughter Jess, used to being the operative phrase. Bryce, you know I love you. This thing with Mark is just temporary. Until I figure out the cleanest way to end it. Bryce. I knew that name. Bryce Patterson, her law partner at Henderson, Mills and Associates, the guy who drove a BMW and wore $1,000 suits to their firm's Christmas parties. The same parties where Elena would introduce me as my husband Mark. He works in construction, with the enthusiasm of someone announcing a terminal diagnosis. The kitchen door creaked as I pushed it open, just enough to see Elena pacing by the granite countertops we'd fought about for months. She'd insisted on the upgrade, said it would help with the house's resale value. Now I understood why she was so concerned about resale value. I know, but you have to understand, if I leave him now, he'll take half of everything. The house, my savings, maybe even my partnership stake. I need more time to protect our assets. Our assets. Funny how 15 years of marriage had suddenly become community property with her boyfriend. Elena turned toward the garage, and I quickly stepped back into the shadows. My heart was hammering like a jackhammer, but not from fear of being caught. It was pure, undiluted rage mixed with something I hadn't felt in years, clarity. The weekend cabin is perfect, Elena continued. Mark thinks I'm at that legal conference in Chicago. We can finally have some real time together without sneaking around cheap motels. Cheap motels. How long had this been going on? How many business trips, late nights at the office, and weekend conferences had been elaborate lies? The front door slammed, making me jump. Jess was home from whatever party she'd been at, probably drunk or high or both. At 17, our daughter had inherited Elena's talent for deception and my stubborn streak. It was not a winning combination. Mom? Why are you up so late? Jess's voice carried the slight slur that meant she'd been drinking. Just finishing up some work calls, honey. You know how it is. Whatever. Is Dad still being weird about you working weekends? I pressed my ear against the door, curious to hear Elena's response. Your father has some trust issues he needs to work through. It's not really about my work schedule. Trust issues? That's what she was calling it. Maybe if he wasn't such a loser, you wouldn't need to work so much, Jess said with the casual cruelty that only teenagers can master. I mean, if he made decent money, you could probably work less, right? Jessica, that's not fair to your father. Isn't it, though? Sarah's dad is a doctor, and her mom doesn't work at all. She gets to travel and shop and actually enjoy her life. You're stuck working all the time because Dad can barely keep us afloat with his construction job. Construction job. I was a project manager for one of the largest commercial construction firms in the state, overseeing million-dollar projects and managing teams of 50 people. But to my family, I was just a guy who got dirty hands for a living. Your father works very hard, Jess. Sure, but working hard at the wrong thing is just stupid, isn't it? The conversation moved upstairs, their voices fading as they climbed the steps to the second floor. I stood in my garage, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects, feeling like the biggest fool who ever lived. Elena had been cheating on me. For how long, I didn't know, but long enough to have weekend getaways planned and exit strategies mapped out. Long enough to discuss my financial inadequacy with her lover. Long enough to turn our daughter against me without me even realizing it was happening. I looked around the garage that had been my sanctuary for years. My workbench, organized with military precision. The vintage motorcycle I'd been restoring since before Jess was born. The punching bag hanging in the corner, a relic from my amateur boxing days that Elena had always hated. Makes the garage look like a gym, she'd complained. What will the neighbors think? Now I knew what the neighbors thought. They thought I was a chump whose wife was screwing her law partner while I fixed carburetors and pretended everything was fine. I walked over to the punching bag and threw a right hook, that sent pain racing through my knuckles. It felt good. It felt like the first honest thing I'd experienced in months. My phone buzzed with a text message. Elena, probably covering her tracks. Working late tomorrow? Don't wait up? Love you. Love you. 2 words that had become as meaningless as her wedding vows. I typed back, love you too. Have a good conference. Let her think I was still the trusting husband she could manipulate. Let her believe I was too stupid to figure out what was happening right under my nose. Let her keep underestimating the man she'd married. Because Mark Sullivan, the blue-collar loser with trust issues, was about to become a very different kind of problem. I pulled up Bryce Patterson's law firm bio on my phone. Harvard Law, partner track at 35, specializes in corporate litigation. The photo showed a man with perfect teeth and the kind of confidence that comes from never having to worry about alternator repairs or mortgage payments. But everyone has secrets. Everyone has weaknesses. And I'd just been given a very strong motivation to find his. I opened my laptop and started researching. If Elena wanted to play games, I'd show her what 15 years of marriage to a detail-oriented project manager could teach a man about planning and execution. The weekend was going to be very educational for all of us. Saturday morning came with the kind of crisp autumn air that usually made me want to rake leaves and maybe take Jess to her soccer game. Instead, I was parked across from the Marriott downtown, watching Elena load her overnight bag into Bryce Patterson's silver BMW. She'd left the house at 9, kissing my cheek and reminding me that she'd be unreachable most of the weekend due to conference sessions. The Chicago Legal Conference that, according to 30 seconds of internet research, had been canceled 2 weeks ago due to a COVID outbreak. Elena looked different, younger somehow. She was wearing the red dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year, the one she'd claimed was too flashy for her taste. Apparently, it was just too flashy for me. Bryce held the passenger door open for her like a gentleman. He was exactly what I'd expected, tall, tan, and expensively dressed, even for a Saturday morning. The kind of man who probably had his groceries delivered and his car detailed weekly. They drove north toward Lake Minnetonka, where I knew Bryce owned a cabin. I'd done my homework. Property records were public information, and Bryce Patterson owned a lot of property. The lake house, a downtown condo, and a commercial building that housed his private practice before he joined Elena's firm. I followed at a distance, feeling like a character in one of those detective novels Elena used to read. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was investigating my own wife like she was a criminal. Though technically adultery wasn't a crime in Minnesota anymore. More's the pity. The cabin was exactly what I'd expected. Rustic luxury with a 3-car garage and a dock that probably cost more than my annual salary. I parked a quarter-mile away and walked through the woods until I had a clear view of the place. Elena and Bryce were on the deck, drinking what looked like mimosas and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. She was sitting in his lap, feeding him strawberries with the kind of playful intimacy that made my stomach turn. I took photos. Lots of photos. Not for any legal reason. Minnesota was a no-fault divorce state, but because I wanted evidence that this was really happening, that I wasn't losing my mind or imagining things. My phone rang, nearly giving me a heart attack. Ray Kowalski, my old boxing trainer and one of the few friends who'd stuck around after I'd gotten married in suburban. Mark, you busy? Got a proposition for you? Actually, I'm in the middle of something. What kind of something? You sound weird. Ray had always been able to read me like a book. It came from years of teaching me to telegraph my punches, the kind of something that might require your particular expertise. Ah, crap, Elena. Elena, I'll be right there. Where are you? I gave him directions and settled in to wait. Ray would understand. He'd been through his own messy divorce 5 years ago and had come out the other side with a philosophy about women that Elena would have called misogynistic, but that I was beginning to appreciate. 20 minutes later, Ray emerged from the tree line like a middle-aged ninja. At 55, he was still built like the heavyweight he'd been in his youth, all shoulders and hands that looked like they could crush walnuts. Jesus Christ, Mark, you're actually surveilling your wife. I'm gathering information. You're acting like a stalker. She's my wife. She's also a human being with rights, even if she is cheating on you. I handed him the binoculars and pointed toward the deck. Elena and Bryce had moved inside, but they were visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. They were dancing to music I couldn't hear, and Elena was laughing the way she used to laugh with me. Ray watched for a minute, then handed the binoculars back. Okay, I take it back. She's definitely sleeping with him. Thank you for that professional assessment. So what's the plan? Beat his A, slash his tires, spray paint adulterer on his BMW? Nothing that stupid. Good, because you go to jail and she get everything in the divorce. I know that. Do you? Because you look like a man who's about 2 seconds away from doing something really incredibly stupid. Ray was right. I was angry enough to do something dumb. But I was also smart enough to know that anger without strategy was just self-destruction. I need to think this through. No, you need to get a lawyer and file for divorce. Clean break, split the assets, move on with your life. She's been planning this, Ray. She told him she needs time to protect their assets. Their assets. She's going to try to screw me out of everything I've worked for. Then you better get ahead of it. We watched Elena and Bryce for another hour. They grilled steaks on the deck, took a boat ride around the lake, and generally acted like a couple celebrating their anniversary. It was a perfect autumn day, and they were spending it together while I hid in the woods like some kind of deranged paparazzi. This is pathetic, I finally said. Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, really pathetic. I'm spying on my own wife. Yep. I should just go home and pretend I never saw any of this. You could do that. Or I could walk up there and confront them right now. You could do that too. Probably end up in jail, but you could do it. Or what? I was thinking about something Elena had said on the phone, about protecting assets, about needing time to figure out the cleanest way to end our marriage. She was treating our divorce like a business transaction, and she was planning to come out ahead. Or I could beat her at her own game. Meaning what exactly? Meaning she thinks I'm stupid. She thinks I'm just some blue-collar guy who doesn't understand how these things work. You are just some blue-collar guy. But I'm not stupid. Ray studied my face for a long moment. No, you're not stupid, but you're also not a lawyer. I don't need to be a lawyer. I just need to be smarter than she thinks I am. And how exactly do you plan to do that? I was still working on that part. But as I watched Elena kiss Bryce Patterson on his deck overlooking the lake, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, and the anger, but underneath it all was something else, determination. Elena wanted to play games. She wanted to treat me like an obstacle to be managed rather than a husband to be respected. Fine, game on. Monday morning brought the kind of normalcy that felt surreal after the weekend's revelations. Elena made coffee and asked about my weekend like she actually cared. I told her I'd worked on the motorcycle and watched football. She told me the conference had been boring but productive. We were both lying, but her lies were so much more elaborate than mine. I'm having lunch with Dave and Mike today, I mentioned as she gathered her briefcase and laptop bag. That's nice, honey. You haven't seen them in a while. Dave Morrison and Mike Chen had been my closest friends since college. We'd been each other's best men, godparents to each other's kids, and regular fixtures at each other's barbecues until life had gradually pulled us in different directions. Dave was a successful accountant, Mike was a software engineer, and I was the blue-collar guy who increasingly felt like a third wheel when we got together. But they were still my friends, and I needed advice from people who knew me well enough to be honest. We met at O'Malley's, a pub downtown that had been our regular spot back when we were young and stupid instead of middle-aged and stupid. Dave was already there when I arrived, scrolling through his phone and looking every inch the suburban professional in his pressed khakis and polo shirt. Mark, good to see you, man. How's Elena? How's the construction business? Elena's fine. Business is good. Where's Mike? Running late, as usual. You know how it is with these tech guys? I ordered a beer even though it was barely noon. Dutch courage, my father would have called it. Actually, I wanted to talk to you guys about Elena. Dave's expression shifted from casual friendliness to the kind of careful attention that meant he was switching into professional mode. Everything okay? She's cheating on me. The words hung in the air like smoke. Dave set down his beer and leaned forward. Are you sure? Positive. I followed her this weekend. She's having an affair with her law partner. Jesus, Mark, I'm sorry. Mike arrived just as I was finishing the story. He slid into the booth and immediately sensed the tension. What's going on? You guys look like someone died. Elena's cheating on Mark, Dave said without preamble. Mike's face went through several expressions before settling on awkward sympathy. Crap, man. That sucks. What are you going to do? I'm not sure yet. That's why I wanted to talk to you guys. Get a lawyer, Dave said immediately. Document everything. Protect your assets. That's what Ray said. Ray's right. You need to get ahead of this before she does. Mike was quieter, stirring his drink and looking uncomfortable. Mike, what do you think? I think maybe you should consider whether this is worth fighting over. Dave and I both stared at him. What do you mean? I asked. I mean, maybe this is an opportunity. You guys haven't been happy for years, Mark. Everyone can see it. Everyone? Come on, man, you barely talk to each other at parties. She introduces you like you're an embarrassment. You spend most social events looking like you'd rather be anywhere else. So it's my fault she's cheating? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Mike glanced at Dave, who was suddenly very interested in his beer. I'm saying maybe you should just let her go. Take the hit financially and move on. Find someone who actually appreciates what you bring to the table. What I bring to the table? You know what I mean. But I was beginning to suspect I didn't know what he meant at all. Mike, are you saying I should just roll over and let her take half of everything I've worked for? I'm saying fighting dirty in a divorce is expensive and ugly, and you've got Jess to think about. Jess already thinks I'm a loser. She told Elena I should make more money so Elena wouldn't have to work so much. Dave winced. Ouch. Yeah, ouch. So forgive me if I'm not feeling particularly generous toward my cheating wife and ungrateful daughter. Look, Mike said, I get that you're angry, but Elena's a lawyer, Mark. She's going to destroy you in court if you try to play hardball. So I should just give up. I'm saying you should be realistic about your options. There was something in Mike's tone that made me look at him more carefully. He was avoiding eye contact, fidgeting with his wedding ring, and generally acting like a man with something to hide. Mike, is there something you want to tell me? What do you mean? You seem awfully eager for me to just roll over and take this. You just think what? Dave was looking back and forth between us like he was watching a tennis match. I think you're not seeing the big picture here, Mark. Then explain the big picture to me. Mike took a long drink, then set his glass down with the deliberate care of a man who'd made a decision he wasn't going to like. The big picture is that Elena's been unhappy for years. The big picture is that you two have been growing apart since Jess started high school. The big picture is that maybe this affair is just the symptom, not the disease. And you know this how? Another long pause. Because she talks to Linda about it. Because our wives are friends, and Linda tells me things. What kind of things? Things like how Elena feels trapped in her marriage. Things like how she wishes she'd married someone with more ambition. Things like how she's been thinking about divorce for over a year. The pub suddenly felt very small and very quiet. And you didn't think to mention any of this to me? What was I supposed to say? Hey, Mark, your wife thinks you're a loser? Yeah, actually, that's exactly what you were supposed to say. That's what friends do. Come on, man. You had to know things weren't great between you two. Knowing things aren't great and knowing your wife is planning to divorce you are two very different things. Dave was trying to disappear into the booth cushions. Look, I'm sorry, Mike said. I should have said something earlier, but honestly, I thought you knew. I thought you were both just staying together for Jess. Well, I didn't know. And now I find out that not only is my wife cheating on me, but my friends have been discussing my failing marriage behind my back. It's not like that. Then what is it like? It's like watching a friend make the same mistakes over and over again and not knowing how to help. What mistakes? Jesus, Mark, you stopped trying years ago. When's the last time you took Elena on a real vacation? When's the last time you bought her flowers or planned a surprise or did anything to show her you still cared about being married to her? The worst part was that he was right. I had stopped trying. But I'd stopped trying because Elena had made it clear that nothing I did was good enough. So this is my fault. It's not about fault. It's about reality. And the reality is that Elena checked out of your marriage a long time ago. And you think I should just accept that? I think you should accept that fighting it is going to make everything worse for everyone. Especially Jess. I looked at Dave, who was still trying to blend into the furniture. Dave, you feel the same way? I think Mike has a point about not making this harder than it has to be. So you both think I should just give Elena whatever she wants and slink away quietly? We think you should be smart about this, Mike said. Smart like letting my cheating wife screw me out of everything I've worked for? Smart like recognizing that you're not going to win a war with a lawyer? I finished my beer and stood up. Thanks for the advice, guys. Really helpful. Mark, don't be like this. Don't be like what? Angry that my friends think I deserve to be cheated on? That's not what we said. It's what you meant. I threw $20 on the table and walked out. Behind me, I could hear Dave and Mike talking in low voices, probably discussing how I was proving their point about being unreasonable. Outside, the autumn air felt sharp and clean after the stale atmosphere of the pub. I sat in my truck for a few minutes, trying to process what had just happened. My wife was cheating on me. My daughter thought I was a loser. My friends thought I deserved it. The smart thing to do, according to everyone, was to accept my fate gracefully and hope Elena would be generous in the divorce settlement. But I'd never been particularly smart, and I'd never been particularly graceful. What I was, apparently, was alone, which meant I was free to handle this situation however I saw fit. And I was beginning to see it very clearly indeed. Elena was working late again, or at least that's what she'd texted me at 5:30, along with a reminder to pick up dinner for Jess and myself. I'd gotten used to these last-minute changes in her schedule, but now I understood what they really meant: more time with Bryce. Jess was in her room, probably on TikTok or Snapchat or whatever social media platform was currently destroying the attention spans of American teenagers. I knocked on her door. Yeah? Can we talk? I'm kind of busy, Dad. It's important. She opened the door with the exaggerated sigh that only 17-year-olds can master. She was wearing pajama pants and a crop top that Elena would have made her change if she'd been home. What's up? I wanted to talk to you about your mom and me. Something shifted in her expression. Not surprise, exactly, but the kind of wariness that meant she knew more than she'd been letting on. What about you and Mom? You know we haven't been getting along very well lately. You haven't been getting along well for years, Dad. Fair point, but things are probably going to get worse before they get better. Are you getting divorced? The question was so direct it caught me off guard. Why would you ask that? Because Mom's been talking to Aunt Sarah about lawyers, and she's been working late every night for like 2 months, and you guys barely speak to each other anymore. Aunt Sarah was Elena's sister, a divorce attorney in Minneapolis who'd been through 3 marriages of her own. Of course, Elena would consult with family before making any moves. What did your mom tell you about lawyers? Just that she might need some legal advice about some work stuff. Work stuff. Yeah, but I'm not stupid, Dad. I know what's going on. I sat down on her bed, uninvited. She remained standing, arms crossed, looking more like Elena every day. What do you think is going on? I think you guys are going to get divorced, and I think it's probably for the best. For the best? Come on, Dad, you're miserable. Mom's miserable. I'm tired of living in a house where everyone pretends everything's fine when it's obviously not. And you think it's my fault. I think it's both your faults, but mostly yours. Why mostly mine? Because Mom tried. She really did. She tried to get you interested in her work, in her friends, in the things that mattered to her, but you just didn't care. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time you went to one of her firm's parties without complaining about it? When's the last time you asked her about a case she was working on? When's the last time you did anything that showed you were proud of what she'd accomplished? I wanted to argue with her, but the truth was that Elena's work had always felt like a rebuke to my own. She was successful and respected and making real money, while I was just managing construction projects and coming home dirty. Your mom and I have different interests. No, Dad. You just never tried to be interested in hers. And what about her being interested in mine? What interests? Working on that stupid motorcycle, watching football, going to Ray's gym to hit things? Those aren't stupid. They're not exactly intellectually stimulating either. Jesus, Jess, when did you become such a snob? When I realized that my dad had given up on everything that might make him interesting. That stung more than I'd expected. Is that really what you think of me? I think you're a good guy, Dad, but I think you stopped trying to be anything more than that a long time ago. And your mom? What do you think of her? I think she deserves to be happy. Even if that means cheating on your father? Jess's expression didn't change. I think people do stupid things when they're unhappy. So, you know. I suspected. And you're okay with it? I'm not okay with cheating, but I understand why someone might feel like they didn't have any other choice. There's always a choice, Jess. Is there? Really? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you and Mom have been choosing to be miserable for years. I stood up, feeling suddenly exhausted. I'm going to try to fix this. How? I don't know yet, but I'm going to try. Dad? Yeah? Maybe instead of trying to fix your marriage, you should try to fix yourself. I left her room feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach by my own daughter. She was 17 years old, and she was talking to me like I was the child. But the worst part was that she wasn't entirely wrong. I had given up. Not all at once, but gradually, over years of feeling like nothing I did was good enough for Elena's new life. I'd retreated into my garage and my tools and my simple pleasures, and I'd let Elena drift away without fighting for her. But that was before I knew she was actively planning to leave me. That was before I knew my friends thought I deserved it. That was before I knew my daughter saw me as a disappointment. I went to the garage and looked at the punching bag Ray had helped me hang 5 years ago. Elena had hated it from the beginning, said it made the garage look like a gym, but right now, it looked like exactly what I needed. I wrapped my hands and started hitting. Left jab, right cross, left hook. The rhythm came back to me slowly. Muscle memory from my amateur boxing days when I'd actually been good at something that mattered. When I'd been disciplined and focused and dangerous. I hit the bag until my shoulders burned and my knuckles ached through the wraps. I hit it until I could think clearly again. Elena wanted to divorce me, but she wanted to do it on her terms. She wanted to be the victim, the long-suffering wife who'd finally found the courage to leave her disappointing husband. She wanted to take half of everything and still look like the good guy. My friends wanted me to make it easy for her. My daughter wanted me to accept that I deserved it. But what I wanted was starting to come into focus. I wanted Elena to understand that underestimating me was a mistake. I wanted my friends to understand that loyalty was a two-way street. I wanted my daughter to see that her father wasn't the pushover everyone thought he was. And I wanted Bryce Patterson to understand that sleeping with another man's wife came with consequences. I unwrapped my hands and flexed my fingers. Tomorrow, I was going to start making some changes. Elena thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. Time to show her that I'd been learning the rules of her game all along. The Henderson, Mills, and Associates office building was downtown Minneapolis glass and steel, the kind of place where people wore suits that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. I'd been there exactly 3 times in the 15 years Elena had worked there. Twice for Christmas parties, and once for a retirement celebration for one of the senior partners. Each time, I'd felt like an imposter. Today, I felt like a man with a mission. I parked across the street and watched the building's entrance through my truck's windshield. Elena's BMW was in the parking garage, along with Bryce's silver sedan. According to the firm's website, they were both working on a major corporate merger that required long hours and close collaboration. Close collaboration, right. At 11:30, they emerged together, walking close enough that their shoulders touched. Elena was laughing at something Bryce had said, her face animated in a way I hadn't seen in years. They looked like a couple, comfortable and intimate and completely unaware they were being watched. They walked to Morton's Steakhouse, the kind of place Elena and I went for anniversaries and special occasions. The kind of place where lunch for 2 would cost more than I usually spend on groceries in a week. I followed them inside and requested a table with a view of the dining room. The hostess, a young woman who probably made more in tips than I made in overtime, seated me at a small table near the bar. Elena and Bryce were 3 tables away, close enough that I could hear fragments of their conversation when the restaurant noise died down. Told Mark the conference was boring, Elena was saying. He didn't even ask for details. He's not very curious about your work, is he? Bryce's voice carried the kind of casual condescension that made my jaw clench. He's not very curious about anything, really. I think he's given up on life. His loss is my gain. Don't be mean. He's not a bad person, he's just limited. Limited. That was a new one. When are you going to tell him? Bryce asked. Soon. I'm just waiting for the right moment. There's never going to be a right moment for something like this. I know, but I want to minimize the damage, especially for Jess. What about minimizing the damage for us? I'm tired of sneaking around, Elena. I want to be able to take you to firm events, introduce you as my girlfriend, not pretend we're just colleagues. We are colleagues. We're a lot more than that, and you know it. Elena reached across the table and touched his hand. The gesture was small and intimate and completely devastating. I know, and I want that too. I just need a little more time to get everything in order. What kind of everything? Financial stuff. I need to make sure I'm protected if Mark decides to be difficult about the divorce. You think he'll fight it? I think he'll be hurt and angry. And hurt. Angry men do stupid things. Like what? Like try to take half my partnership's stake. Like demand alimony. Like make this as ugly as possible just to spite me. Can he do that? He can try, but I've been preparing for this possibility for a while now. How so? Elena glanced around the restaurant, and for a moment I thought she'd spotted me, but she was just making sure they couldn't be overheard. I've been moving assets around, setting up accounts he doesn't know about, building a case that he's been financially irresponsible. Has he been? He's been complacent. He makes decent money, but he doesn't invest it wisely. He doesn't plan for the future. He just assumes everything will work out because it always has. And now it won't. Now it won't. I sat there listening to my wife plan my financial destruction while she held hands with her lover. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. But the information was useful. Elena thought I was financially irresponsible and complacent. She thought I didn't plan for the future. She thought I would be too hurt and angry to think strategically about the divorce. She was wrong on all counts, but I wasn't going to correct her misunderstanding until it was too late for her to adjust her strategy. I paid my check and left before they finished their lunch. Outside, the autumn air felt sharp and clean after the stale atmosphere of betrayal I'd been breathing. Elena thought she was 3 moves ahead of me. She thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. But I'd been married to a lawyer for 15 years. I'd absorbed more about legal strategy and financial planning than she realized. And I'd been managing complex construction projects with million-dollar budgets and impossible deadlines long enough to know something about strategic thinking. I drove to Ray's gym, a converted warehouse on the edge of downtown that smelled like sweat and leather and honest work. Ray was training a heavyweight who looked like he could bench press my truck. "Mark, you're early. Thought you weren't coming in until tonight. Change of plans. Can we talk?" Ray finished with the heavyweight and led me to his office, a cluttered space that doubled as a storage room for boxing equipment. "You look like a man who's made a decision," Ray said. "I have. Good decision or bad decision?" "Depends on your perspective." I told him about lunch at Morton's, about Elena's financial preparations, about her casual dismissal of me as limited and complacent. Ray listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker as the story progressed. "She's been planning this for months," he said when I finished. "Maybe years. And she thinks you're too stupid to see it coming. Apparently. Are you going to prove her right? What do you think?" Ray grinned, and for a moment he looked like the fighter he'd been 30 years ago. "I think Elena Patterson is about to learn that underestimating a Sullivan is a very expensive mistake. Elena Sullivan. She's keeping my name until the divorce is final. Not for much longer, I'm betting. Not if I can help it." Ray opened his desk drawer and pulled out a business card. "My lawyer. Handled my divorce, and he's meaner than a snake when he needs to be. Tell him I sent you and tell him everything you just told me." I took the card. Thomas Brennan, attorney at law. The address was in a modest office building, not a downtown skyscraper. "He's not fancy," Ray said, "but he's effective, and he doesn't like cheating wives." "Thanks. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly, Mark. Elena's going to fight dirty, and she's got resources you don't have. She's also got vulnerabilities she doesn't think I know about. Such as the fact that she's been having an affair with her law partner, which is probably against firm policy. Such as the fact that she's been moving marital assets without my knowledge, which is probably illegal. Such as the fact that she's been lying to our daughter about why she's working late. You think Jess will take your side? I think Jess will take the side of whoever's telling her the truth. And you think that's you? I know it's me." Ray studied my face for a long moment. "You're different, harder." "I'm motivated." "Good. You're going to need to be." I left the gym feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Optimistic. Not happy exactly, but focused. Elena thought she was playing a game where she held all the cards. Time to show her that I'd been holding a few cards of my own. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in Thomas Brennan's office watching Elena's face turn white as she read the divorce papers I just had served to her at work. Brennan had suggested serving them at the law firm for maximum impact, and judging by Elena's expression, the strategy had worked. "You can't be serious," she said, her voice shaking with what I hoped was rage rather than hurt. "Deadly serious. Mark, we can work this out. We don't need lawyers. We needed lawyers the moment you started moving marital assets into secret accounts. Elena's eyes flicked to Brennan, then back to me. I don't know what you think you know. I know about the account at First National. I know about the money you transferred from our joint savings. I know about the safety deposit box you opened last month. How could you possibly? Because I'm not as stupid as you think I am. Elena sank into the chair across from Brennan's desk. She looked smaller somehow, less formidable than the woman who'd been casually planning my destruction over lunch at Morton's. I was protecting us, she said quietly. You were protecting yourself. Mark, please. Think about Jess. I am thinking about Jess. I'm thinking about what it's going to do to her when she finds out her mother has been lying to her for months. You wouldn't. Try me. Brennan cleared his throat. Mrs. Sullivan, perhaps we should focus on the immediate issues. My client is seeking an equitable division of marital assets, full custody of your daughter, and spousal support. Spousal support? From me? You make considerably more money than my client. This is insane. What's insane, I said, is thinking you could cheat on me and steal from me and I'd just roll over and take it. Elena's composure finally cracked. Steal from you? I earned that money, Mark. I worked 60-hour weeks while you played with your motorcycle and pretended to be a tough guy at Ray's gym. And I managed million-dollar construction projects while you played house with Bryce Patterson. The mention of Bryce's name hit Elena like a physical blow. How long have you known? Long enough. Mark, I can explain. No need. I've got photos. You followed me? I investigated you like you were a problem that needed solving. I'm your wife. You're my cheating, lying, thieving wife. There's a difference. Elena looked at Brennan. This is harassment. This is divorce court, Mrs. Sullivan. And your husband has documentation of adultery, financial misconduct, and what appears to be systematic deception. Unless you have evidence of misuse or misconduct on his part, I'd suggest you consider his terms carefully. His terms are ridiculous. His terms are negotiable, but only if you're willing to negotiate in good faith. Elena stood up abruptly. I need to call my lawyer. Your sister's already been retained by another client, I said. Conflict of interest. What? Ray's ex-wife needed a divorce attorney. Brennan recommended Sarah. Funny how these things work out. Elena stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. You've been planning this? I've been learning from the best. She left without another word, and Brennan and I spent the next hour going over strategy. Elena would fight, but she was fighting from a position of weakness now. The affair with Bryce had been documented, the financial misconduct had been discovered, and most importantly, she'd underestimated her opponent. That evening, I was in the garage working on the motorcycle when Jess found me. Dad, can we talk? Sure. She looked nervous, younger than her 17 years. Mom told me you filed for divorce. I did. She said you're trying to take all her money. I'm trying to get what I'm legally entitled to. She said you hired a mean lawyer. I hired an effective lawyer. Jess sat down on my workbench, careful not to disturb my tools. Are you doing this to hurt her? I'm doing this to protect myself. From what? From being screwed over by someone who's supposed to love me. Mom does love you. Mom loves Bryce Patterson. Jess's face went through several expressions before settling on resignation. You know about that. I know about a lot of things. How long have you known? Long enough to document it. That's really cold, Dad. Colder than cheating on your husband? She didn't mean for it to happen. She meant for it to continue happening. She meant to hide it from me. She meant to take half of everything I've worked for while she was screwing another man. You don't have to be so crude about it. I don't have to be polite about it either. Jess was quiet for a long moment. What's going to happen to us? That depends on your mother. What do you mean? I mean, if she wants to fight this in court, it's going to get ugly. If she wants to settle reasonably, we can probably work something out that doesn't destroy everyone involved. And if she fights, then everyone's going to know exactly what kind of person she really is. Including me, especially you. Jess slid off the workbench. I don't want to choose sides, Dad. Then don't. Just pay attention to who's telling you the truth. She left me alone with my tools and my thoughts. Outside, I could hear Elena on the phone, probably with whatever lawyer she'd managed to retain. She'd be looking for angles, weaknesses, ways to turn this situation to her advantage. But for the first time in months, I wasn't worried about what Elena was planning, because I'd finally stopped playing defense. And Mark Sullivan on offense was apparently a very different animal than the man Elena thought she'd married. The final hearing was scheduled for a cold Tuesday morning in February. Elena had fought the divorce for 4 months, burning through 2 lawyers and most of her savings in the process. She'd accused me of harassment, stalking, and emotional misuse. She'd demanded full custody of Jess, half of my pension, and the house. She'd gotten none of it. Judge Patricia Williams was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd been handling family court cases for 20 years. She'd seen every trick in the book, and Elena's legal team had apparently tried most of them. "Mrs. Sullivan," Judge Williams said, "I've reviewed all the evidence in this case, including the financial records, the photographs, and the testimony from both parties. I'm ready to make my ruling." Elena sat at the defendant's table with her third lawyer, a young man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. She'd aged in the past 4 months, stress and legal bills taking their toll. In the matter of asset division, I find that Mrs. Sullivan did indeed transfer marital assets to accounts held solely in her name without her husband's knowledge or consent. This constitutes financial misconduct, and I'm ordering those assets returned to the marital estate. Elena's lawyer whispered something in her ear, but she didn't react. In the matter of custody, I'm awarding primary physical custody to Mr. Sullivan, with reasonable visitation rights for Mrs. Sullivan. This got a reaction. Elena half stood, then sat back down when her lawyer grabbed her arm. In the matter of spousal support, given the disparity in income and Mrs. Sullivan's misconduct, I'm ordering her to pay Mr. Sullivan alimony in the amount of $2,000 per month for a period of 3 years. Elena's face went pale. Finally, in the matter of the marital residence, I'm awarding the house to Mr. Sullivan with the understanding that he will assume full responsibility for the remaining mortgage. Judge Williams closed her file. This divorce is granted. Mrs. Sullivan, you have 30 days to vacate the marital residence. Mr. Sullivan, you have 30 days to assume full financial responsibility for the property. Court is adjourned. Elena left the courtroom without looking at me. Her lawyer gathered his papers and followed her out, probably already composing his final bill. Brennan shook my hand. "Congratulations. You got everything you asked for." "Almost everything." "What did you not get?" "An apology." Outside the courthouse, Ray was waiting by his truck. He'd taken the morning off to be there for moral support. "How'd it go?" "I won. All of it. All of it." Jesus, Elena's lawyer must have been terrible. Elena's lawyer was fine. Elena was her own worst enemy. We drove to O'Malley's for a celebratory drink. It was barely noon, but I figured winning a divorce was worth breaking my usual rules about daytime drinking. "So what now?" Ray asked. "Now I go home and figure out how to be a single father." "What about Jess? How's she handling all this?" "Better than I expected. Turns out she's been wanting to transfer to a different school anyway. Something about wanting a fresh start where everyone doesn't know about her parents' divorce." "Smart kid. She gets that from her mother. And the stubbornness? That's all Sullivan." We drank our beers and watched ESPN. It felt good to sit in a bar in the middle of the day without feeling guilty about it. It felt good to have won something for once. My phone buzzed with a text message. "Elena, we need to talk." I showed the message to Ray. "You going to respond?" "Eventually." "What do you think she wants?" "Probably to negotiate something, maybe visitation, maybe money, maybe just to get the last word." "You going to give it to her?" "Depends on what she's offering in return." I finished my beer and headed home. The house felt different now that it was legally mine. Bigger, somehow. Emptier, but also full of possibility. Elena's car was in the driveway. She was sitting at the kitchen table with 2 cups of coffee like she was expecting me. She looked tired and older than her 42 years. "Hello, Mark." "Elena." "Congratulations. You got everything you wanted." "I got what I was legally entitled to." "Same thing, I suppose." I sat down across from her and took the coffee she'd poured. It was good coffee, better than the stuff I usually made for myself. "What do you want, Elena?" "I want to apologize." "For which part?" "For all of it. For the affair, for the lying, for trying to hide money from you, for underestimating you." "Okay. That's it, okay? What do you want me to say?" "I don't know, something. I accept your apology. Do you forgive me?" "I don't know yet." Elena nodded like she'd expected that answer. "I'm moving to Chicago. There's a position at a firm there, and I think it's best if I start over somewhere else. What about Jess? She can visit during school breaks and summers if she wants to. If she wants to. She's pretty angry with me right now. I think some distance might be good for both of us. Maybe. Mark? Yeah? I really am sorry, not just for getting caught, but for doing it in the first place. Why did you do it? Elena was quiet for a long moment. Because I was unhappy, and I blamed you for it instead of taking responsibility for my own choices. And now? Now I know that happiness isn't something someone else can give you. It's something you have to create for yourself. Took you long enough to figure that out. Yeah, it did. She finished her coffee and stood up. I'll be out by the end of the week. Elena? Yeah? For what it's worth, I hope Chicago works out for you. Thanks. After she left, I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and thinking about the past year. 12 months ago, I'd been a married man who thought his biggest problem was a failing alternator. Now I was a divorced single father with a house, a daughter, and a future that was entirely up to me. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was the life I'd fought for. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough. Jess came home from school an hour later and found me still sitting at the kitchen table. Dad, everything okay? Everything's fine. How was school? Boring. How was court? Educational. Did you win? We all lost something, but yeah, I won. Good. I'm proud of you. For what? For not letting them walk all over you. Them? Mom, her lawyer, Mike and Dave, everyone who thought you'd just roll over and take it. You knew about Mike and Dave? I knew they thought you were pathetic. I heard Mom talking to Aunt Sarah about it. And what do you think? I think you're tougher than anyone gave you credit for, including me. Thanks, kid. Dad? Yeah? Can we order pizza for dinner? I'm tired of cooking. We can do whatever we want. It's our house now. Our house? Our house. Jess smiled, and for the first time in months, it looked genuine. I liked the sound of that. So did I.